Hello, this is Will Faber from Art to Ride, and today we're having a look at submission by Anisette and Sandy. Sandy we've seen once before, but with a different rider, Malin. So this would be the first time with Anisette. And what a great job they're doing. If you saw this mare, we can see that she's quite roach-backed in the middle of her back there. And that's something really not to worry about at all. This doesn't seem to bother this horse at all. And I think you'll find, like the old horse traders used to say, a roach back is better than a sway back. And just like with Legolas himself, he was quite roach back, not as much as this horse, but pretty prominently. And that's pretty much completely disappeared now over the time with the work, and as he's developed over his top line, you're not really aware of it. But this is really great work that I'm seeing here, and just really great to turn on these videos now and just see all of you people all over the world just doing such a great job with your horses, and just watching them turn into these round balls rolling over the ground, which is just what we want to see. Just, it now looks like there's purpose to what we're doing here. Someone once said to me that I took to a horse show, and they're watching the warm-up ring, and they turned to me and just said, well, what are they trying to do? Because when you watch so many people ride today, it just looks so pointless. It just looks like this argument between two creatures that's never really coming to a happy conclusion. But this just looks so nice, and it's great to see so many of you just doing this on your own. It's exactly what I had intended when we started this project, and really hoped that we would be able to do and spread this information out there. So you're all just doing a wonderful job, and as I said, for each one of you that learns this work, I know that we're going to be saving thousands of horses, down the road as this grows exponentially. Because as you've all realized, I'm sure, that once you learn to actually ride correctly, that is from the back to the front, it just makes this all so easy, and it also makes it safe. That's the thing to never forget. A horse that's not really calm and does not really trust the rider is not a safe horse. And we see so many people being killed these days for that reason. These very powerful horses are just, they're just barely under control. So when something goes wrong, they bail on the rider because they don't trust the rider. So, developing trust with your horse is the #1 safe thing. As I said, I've never seen anybody who rides like this ever really come to a bad end with horses, because they can feel what they should be doing, what they should not be doing as well. That's part of being a good equestrian. Hey, maybe that fence isn't a good idea, and listening to yourself rather than daring yourself to do things. It's always a bad idea. But this is absolutely wonderful work, and it actually just lets me flow along in here and talk a little bit because it has such a beautiful rhythm. It's really fantastic how much like music it is. You can now just see this beautiful figure, this beautiful round figure that you can so clearly see with this horse rolling over the ground. And look how easily she steps, how that rhythm just becomes so accentuated at times. And how the longer her neck gets, how the freer and looser, see like there, how freer and looser those hips become. And that's, of course, so important to a horse like this. So to every horse, of course, but when you have some kind of abnormality in the back, as we do with this horse, it's going to even make a greater difference, as it would have if the horse were trained improperly. People get by today to a great deal because of the talent and, how good the horses are that we have today. But they're still falling apart at such a young age, and it's just very surprising how few people just seem to be spending any time at all thinking about why that is happening. It's just become, we've too accepted that, oh, well, I'm going to spend, buy a horse, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars a year on vet bills. That's just really not how it should be at all if you take care of them. And of course, taking care of them, at the root of it, is how we work them, so that they can live a happy life. Horses that are forced into things are really just like any other prisoner that's forced to work. Some of them will accept it. Some others will be, will develop ulcers, and none of them are ever going to want to be doing it. And as I said, that trust thing comes into that again. So once again, watch how as she stretches down. You're just doing such a great job of just keeping this horse in a good steady rhythm as it's going along. And as you've seen here, the beauty of the walk work is you can do so much of it. And it's just the right thing to do. Let the horse stop and relieve itself. No big deal. We can always take a step on. It is always a mistake to force horses to keep going when they are trying to relieve themselves. Always remember that. And once again, they always come back better as soon as they do as well, because that also tells you how the work that you're doing is having the right effect on the horse. If it relieves itself fairly shortly after, it tells you that we're beginning to engage the core. The back is lifting, which allows them to their digestive tract to work correctly. It's all together. Don't forget that. That's the most important thing. When you see a horse with a very extended belly, you know that that horse has 1,000 times more chance of colicking than one that has a core where it's being held together. Those internal organs are being massaged. But this is really great work. What I'm seeing here is just lovely to watch it go around like this. You've done a really good job with it. There, I'm not sure whether that was intentional or not, but you got a little more activity out of the horse, and we got a little more swing in it. So whether it was or not, that was a good thing. So we're always remembering that sometimes we just have to make them a little more active. Remembering the difference between active and forward. We get them active so that we can ultimately get them forward. That is, we just have to get the hind end moving enough that something can happen, but not too fast. Not so fast that the horse is pushed onto its forehand. And that's the difference between running and forward. So forward means to engage forward underneath the body. But as you can see, what I'm saying is that sometimes you just have to get the horse more active before that can take place. And then that begins to take place. And then you could say the horse is forward. And that's what the old masters meant when they said, ride your horses forward and straight. Well, the only way to get them straight and forward is to get them working over the backs. That's what they meant. You can't get just part of a horse straight. In other words, the back is the link between the two ends, and if it doesn't come up, the horse can never be truly straight. And so you'll always have that feeling of one-sidedness. The point of this work is to get the horse, though, it isn't one-sided any longer. And those of you who've never experienced riding a horse that isn't one-sided will be amazed when they first get on one that is, that you feel the same suppleness. And actually, you feel more suppleness than you ever would have felt before on either side. And all of a sudden the horse can just bend and it can just turn. We listen to so much hypothesizing about how we should ride a horse. The 30 different ways that you can ask for a horse to turn, as opposed to the idea, which is the correct idea, that when the horse is correctly trained, all you do is put yourself in the position of the turn and the horse will turn. So it's correcting that basic underlying foundation that really is the key to everything that we do. And once you learn this, someone wrote in today talking about how they're working these trotters in this manner and how they're starting to improve their running times. And that's exactly as it would be. This is exactly the same for, and if you go back and look at a horse like Secretariat running, Secretariat ran over his back in the most supple, beautiful stride I've ever seen on a horse. Now, there are other horses that are fast. I looked at another one, which was, I think, Man of War running, and he ran very fast but very hollow. So it's certainly possible. But imagine how much faster he would have run had he been over his back, point being. So that was really great work, walk work that we just saw there. You're doing a really great job with that, establishing just exactly what I want to see, the horse stretching into the contact in a steady rhythm. And that gives you some idea that the horse might be ready to do some faster work. Now, once you get this idea of not wasting your time, we see so many people wasting their time with young horses, lunging them down, as we say. That's never what we want to do. Now, once in a while, when we first start a horse off, we usually have to just establish that the horse will lunge and get that going. And then we come right back to the work in hand. Though some of them we're able to work in hand right from the beginning. But it would normally be with a young one that we get them going on the lunge line first and get them into the contact and that sort of thing, which we need in order to get them to ultimately do the work in hand correctly. But look how beautifully this horse is swinging along here. It's got a nice bounce to it. It could have a little longer stride, but look how beautifully that's swaying over its back. And the horse reminds me a lot of Bailador, who was just so upside down and so stiff through his back. But once you get them going, they have this beautiful bounce to them and beautiful ability to flex their hocks when they're allowed to, like right there. You can just see this beautiful ball rolling over the ground. That's exactly what you want to see. And once again, when it comes back to this, how low should the horse be? The horse needs to be as low as the neck needs to be to allow the top line to engage. Like if you see this horse right there, it's about right there. Well, you could say, some people would say, well, that's below the knees. Well, that's okay. It will slowly come up. So when the horse develops top line, the neck starts being carried out all by itself and up. Almost like you can see, like a giant long muscle just kind of contracting as it brings the entire horse up as the horse engages, also through its core. But that's absolutely beautiful. If you can get this horse to do what you're doing right here, that's all you have to do, is just keep doing this. Now that's a perfect working stride for this horse right there. That was really good. So that was the entire top line of the horse lit up. So let it be wherever it needs to be to get the horse to move like you just saw. So wherever the neck has to be, that's just wherever the neck has to be. It's the movement that develops the horse, not the neck. So wherever the neck is or needs to be to find that best working trot, where the horse is actually working over its back, meaning that is the thrust of the hind leg, because the horse is lifted a little bit, is able to complete the stride through the horse's back. That's why you get that round sense of that. It's like a round energy. The hocks make almost a perfect round circle. As you can see, as they push off the ground, they push up into that round back, and that's what brings the forehand off the ground and ultimately into collection. So you're doing a really good job with this horse. It's been really lovely to watch. And this is just how a workout should be. And look how regular, and there's nothing dramatic here. There was no running the horse around on the end of a lunge line for a half an hour before you got to what you were doing. And of course that is the thing, especially when you're working with hot horses. We don't want them to get overly hot. So if we can work them in hand and get them stretching and relaxing before we go on the lunge line, well, then we've really won the day there, and we've saved ourselves a lot of running around. But that's never what we want to do. We want to take as few steps upside down as possible from the time you start working a horse. So we do not want to ever have a horse just running around us in a circle for hours at a time, the way we see people doing. And yes, lunging will destroy your horse's leg, but you have to put the caveat on: any upside down riding will destroy your horse's leg. So that's the thing to understand. You can just see it when this horse gets like this, how light it moves over the ground. So once again, it's ameliorating all of that stress of the contact with the ground that the horse's legs have to do. So just like a person running with their knees bent. If you run with your knees bent, you can run a long ways. If your legs are straight, you won't be able to stand up the next day. So this is really beautiful work and lovely, lovely rhythm here as you're getting out of this horse. And you can see how that, when does the stride get interrupted there for a moment? And it's always at that moment that she raises her head. And you can see how the back end just kind of drops out behind her every time that she does that. But you're doing just the right thing there, just to engage her back forward again. That is to engage her forward from behind underneath herself, which is just exactly what you're doing here. And look how beautifully this horse is bending. And I remember this horse from its previous video. I mean, this is much better bending. You see, once you get the horse to stretch over its back the way you're doing, and you can connect the stride, the horse just bends. This horse is bending all that a horse should bend. I mean, it's really bent all the way from the pole all the way back to the dock of its tail. And that's how you know that the horse is really starting to lift its back, when you get that perfect bend in the horse. So very often, when we see people and instructors telling people to, drive that horse into the corner and bend it through, all they're really doing is driving the horse into the corner and yanking it around on the inside rein. It doesn't really create anything at all. So what you saw there, that was about a 20-meter circle. So that would be about the level that this horse could possibly bend at this level of work. So when we ride, then we always think about, well, our corner then is a quarter of the largest circle I could perform and keep the horse over its back. And as you see with that, a horse at this level, that's usually about a 20-meter circle, sometimes even larger, with like the horse legless. He literally could not go in a dressage ring. He couldn't do a 20-meter circle for a very long time. He, of course, can now. And so, but this can also be the problem with a lot of big horses, that they just really get shut down. People have this idea in dressage of this sort of trotty trot that we see so many of these big horses being shut down into. And of course, then the back drops, and then of course the kissing spine begins, and then they begin with the injections and all the things trying to figure out what's wrong. And it's always the same thing. Really nice walk stretch there, and you can see how this horse just completely transformed from that moment that the head was up in the air there until it decided to lower and begin to swing. It looked like a completely different horse. And you can feel those moments, like you feel there how she's beginning to kind of be confused. What am I supposed to do here? And then watch as she drops, how the back end begins to come through. You can literally see, if you look closely, as the neck comes up with all horses, you see how they start to stab the ground with their front legs, and they start to pull themselves along with their shoulders. But the more the neck goes down, and you see that soft underside of the neck, that's what it tells you, that the horse is no longer pulling with its shoulders, but that is the stride is being able to complete itself through the back, so the back end is actually what's pushing the horse forward, as you see there. Really nice walk right in there. I'm not sure where this actually is here, probably somewhere in Sweden or Norway, I think. But it's just great to see how these folks get out, and this is how I rode. I never had an indoor arena growing up, until much later in life. We rode our horses out just like you folks are doing here. And the only time we didn't was when it was too icy. But as I say, I see with you people, you have to really want to ride horses, to go out into this kind of weather and work them in it and be devoted enough to get something done with them. So good on ya, as they say down under, where I'll be going in March. Really looking forward to that. It's a really great walk here. Really lovely 4-beat rhythm. Once again, and just like you want to be able to set a metronome to your horse's gaits. That's what it's all about. That's where people, however, got a bit confused when dressage began to go down this dark path it has now taken. Was that it used to be that we considered that a horse that was really in rhythm was supposed to be the pinnacle of good dressage. So we got these horses that look like they're in rhythm, but what they missed was that when we talk about horse being in rhythm, it's the two ends of the horse has to be in rhythm, not just like this bouncy, phony stride that we begin to think of as something, which is nothing at all, but a sway back horse going around a ring, snapping its legs up. Now, you can only achieve that with a certain kind of breed, and that's kind of what happened in dressage. It sort of, all of a sudden, it just became about who could afford these horses that have these exaggerated gaits and are quiet enough to be forced into these phony frames. Which, by the way, is the same thing that is true of saddlebreds and Tennessee Walkers and all these horses that they do other extreme swing. They're the sweetest horses in the world. If they weren't, they would never put up with what is done to them. But what you're doing to this horse is a wonderful thing, which is getting him to stretch out. He looks like he's really enjoying the work. And you've done a great job of just being patient and bringing along. But once you have the faith in what we do to wait, when you begin to experience that day by day, it makes this very interesting. If all I did was get on a horse and did the same thing with it every day, what makes this interesting is getting on in there. A real trainer has to get in touch with the horse. This is what I plan to do every day and kind of what I end up doing. So it changes as the horse. So we have to read the horse every day. It's a fascinating thing. As I said, it's like playing chess. We have to think many, many moves ahead. But just getting something like you're getting here, once you get a good walk and you realize how much fun it is to actually ride a good walk. Most people don't ever ride a good walk because their walks are so terrible that it feels like they're crawling around the arena. But when you really get a horse to swing over its back, it's a lovely feeling to just ride them in that big open walk. Someone sent today on Facebook a picture of some Western class somewhere, and these horses were doing this strange thing that I think is called I don't know what it is supposed to be, some kind of canter, but it was just the saddest thing I've seen in ages. These horses just all look like cripples, crippling along on their front ends, It's just very sad to think that this kind of thing has become anything that you could call riding. I mean, why don't we just get a little carousel and let people ride around on it? That's the idea that, there's two ways to ride. Is we can think of riding as we have to bring ourselves up as human beings to the level of the horse, instead of the other idea that we have to dumb the horse down for the human being to the level of the human being. And that's no way to be. A real rider wants to bring themselves, I believe, up to the level of the horse. That is the horse's potential for athleticism, which drives us to do the same thing for ourselves, which was what, once again, makes this interesting. They always used to say about the Tennessee Walkers, oh, look at that, he hit a lick. It's just like sitting in an armchair. Well, if you want to sit in an armchair, why don't you just stay in your armchair at home? That's what I've never understood about it. As opposed to, if you want to get on a horse and gallop across country, that's a whole other thing. Once again, it requires that you bring yourself up to the level of the horse. You're just doing a wonderful job, though, and I'm sure that that is exactly what you're experiencing here. As I said, the walk becomes a wonderful and fun thing to do once we get it going. It also really lets you get in tune. Everything is, once you get that horse over the back and you really feel it just flowing along, and you can really get in touch with your seat and your legs and how easy it is to touch horses, how little it takes. That is the other thing, of course. If your horse is, any horse can work off the weight of the leg practically if they're not held up in front. It's only these horses that, I don't know why it has been so difficult for people to understand that if you hold against the horse's mouth, the horse is not going to want to move, nor could the movement that you would be achieving be, worth having. This really, really nice swing in this walk here. And you can see even there as that head comes up a little bit, how the walk gets a little disconnected there for a moment until you get it back swinging again and she begins to lower. But I think you're doing everything exactly right here, so all you have to think about is just adding a little more to it. And once we get this idea of this system, just what you're doing there, you do the work in hand, you get it right in the work in hand, you get the work horse correct on the lunge, and then you get on and do what the horse can do correctly with you on it, which at this level is just stretching into the contact. But the more of that you do, the more it makes it easier for the other thing, which is the next step, which would be to trot, to happen. That's what people need to understand, that it's never about, the more you do anything wrong, in a wrong way, that is the horse not over its back, it just makes it harder and harder to do the thing you're actually trying to do, which is why we, of course, see people going to bigger and bigger bits and more, sources of draw reins and things to try to force the horse's neck over. There. Now look how much beautiful the walk there is. And you did just the right thing. You kept it there. She tried to resist there, but you kept it going, and then you gave it just the right moment, and the horse came right down into the contact for you. Just like that, and you get an even deeper stretch. So that is just the thing to do, just like that. So we want the horse to know, essentially what we're doing is showing it the way to where it's that much easier. That's why when the horse brings its head up, we don't pull back. All we do is just raise our hands up and follow it up with it. The horse does not want to be up in that position. That's the thing that you have to understand. What we're working towards, the easiest thing for the horse to do. That's why once they start working this way, they love it, because of course this is the way nature intended for them to move, regardless of what some of the biomechanic geniuses have to say these days. Really nice walk coming across there. So you're really right on track with all of this. I couldn't be happier with what I'm seeing here. And just look at how beautiful it looks. And we go and watch people ride. It should look like this. Like I get lost even just watching you because it's just lovely to watch it, even though we're not doing something, we're not doing some extravagant Grand Prix movement. But just to watch this horse go from right there when it gets a little hollow and stuck, and then you get it back in the stretch and watch how more beautifully it starts to swing through. I mean, it's undeniable if you have eyes and can actually see how the horse is moving, you know, what would be the correct way for a horse to move. I mean, it's undeniable. If you're doing something else and you end up with a two-beat walk, well, how could that other thing have been correct? Which is, of course, why the roller advocates and these people are trying to get the walk taken out of Grand Prix, have been trying to get that done. Let's hope that never happens. Beautiful walk there. It's just undeniable once you get in that position. So this will just continue to improve and improve. I think you've done a great job here. I think you are ready to begin the trot work in more earnest with the horse. But you have what the guidelines are. If you can't get the horse into the stretch in the trot within a few, 3 or 4 circles or whatever the case may be, come back to the walk, recorrect it in the walk, and try again. One day you'll just put the gas on and the horse will move right up underneath you and it will just stay right in the stretch. When it's ready to do it, it will do it. You never have to fight a horse to do anything that's actually physically prepared to do. That's the thing that we have to get in our minds, that almost all resistance at least has its origins in somebody asking a horse to do something it was incapable to do, either mentally or physically. A lot of horses could jump a big fence, but if somebody puts them in one that they don't understand how to jump and they end up having an accident or stopping, then you've got a problem for the rest of the horse's life because it wasn't educated enough to do what you asked it to do, even though it may have done it many times before. That's the trouble with rushing horses at fences. Yes, a lot of these talented young horses will jump some very big fences, but as soon as they make a mistake, if they have no real foundation of education, they'll never jump again. Then they just quit, or they try to get rid of you every time you try to jump them again because they'll never really trust it because they weren't really educated. And of course, that's once again why we're getting so many people killed in jumping competitions. I think 4 people last month alone, or a month and a half ago. All rotational falls, which are always caused by horses being jumping hollow. And of course, secondarily, being held in the hand. So if you've got the horse's neck all cranked over, with some kind of tie-down rein of some form or other, and the horse starts to fall, it's just going to flip over right on top of you. So we need much more people worrying about how horses are training and the real root cause of all these accidents. Even with all our blow-up vests and all these protective gear we have today, more people are getting killed riding than have ever done before. It's again a beautiful walk. So this has been a really great tape. I've really enjoyed watching this. As I said, sometimes I've gotten mesmerized just watching it myself because it's just gotten into such a rhythmic place at times. But it's also been a good one right there where we can really see this horse so clearly go and watch how once again she goes back into the stretch and how the horse starts to swing. And you can imagine, of course, that the horse is more comfortable in that position. Otherwise, it wouldn't swing. It wouldn't feel happier in the movement if it wasn't happier, if that makes sense. If it were more unhappy, it would do like we see so many horses doing, wringing their tails and swishing and grinding their teeth and all the things that we see horses doing that are being forced to do things. I mean, people just think that that's part of the personality. I've seen that as a sales pitch so many times. Oh, that's how that horse is. Well, it's not how that horse is. It's how the horse became from being abused. So really great job here. You're doing a wonderful job with this horse. I really look forward to seeing this one develop, as I do so many of you. We have so many great riders coming along now who are showing so much promise and talent. I'm actually really hopeful for the next generation of riders, and you're all just really making me feel great about what we're doing out here. So keep up the great work. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. I look forward to seeing more of this horse and rider combination very soon, and all the rest of you as well.